one of the AOC's constituents actually managed to get a response from her about why she voted for the 40 billion in aid, which was the really important aid package that provided at least a year's worth of war. And she said because it contained billions of dollars for assisting Ukrainian refugees in Western Europe and other places, and that she supports refugees. So that was her kind of whitewashing or refugee washing of this disgusting war. And there's a Channel 4 special, Channel 4 in the UK special, on how some of those Ukrainian refugees are doing in the UK. And I wanted to play this video because it would be funny if it wasn't so sad. This is what AOC is sort of sponsoring.
I think we hadn't necessarily taken into consideration the cultural differences.
But those cultural...
So just to brief you, and if you're just listening on audio only, there's a Channel 4 reporter in the home of a liberal woman who has taken in refugees in Birmingham, UK, and she's complaining about cultural differences. And let's hear what they are.
Differences weren't often talked about when Andrea signed up to the Homes for Ukraine scheme. She lives in a diverse part of Birmingham. After a week of staying there, her guest told her there were too many Muslims in the area.
We were quite shocked at how difficult she found different cultures.
She felt there were just too many Muslims.
Too many Muslims, too many people with different skin colors.
Her guest's son was enrolled into the local school, where the majority of children happened to be Black and Asian.
And then to just have her complain about the demographic of the school and going, well, he can't be safe there. There's not enough.
There's too many Black people there. There's too many Asian people. They don't like them.
White kids, essentially.
They both agreed to end the placement.
They don't realise there's lots of people that look like me here. And that can be quite like, wow, you know, I thought England was full of English people. And it is, because I'm English, but I just look very different. I'm a 6 foot tall Black woman. So yeah, I'm sure when they came in, I could see people really clutching their handbags. But by the time we'd kind of
really clutching their Azov patches,
got into it, you know, people had warmed up. There was lots more smiles. They were talking to each other. So I feel like we got it just about right.
From the best area of Kyiv, where I became to the worst area of the Birmingham, unfortunately.
Oksana moved here from Kyiv last summer, living...
So this is a Ukrainian refugee named Oksana who said she's from the best part of Kyiv and now has moved to what she calls the worst part of Birmingham, and we'll hear why it's the worst.
Side by side with so many different cultures made her feel afraid.
I was very afraid because it was not usually for me, and and some people just told me about so many dangerous stories.
Lots of people here would feel very offended that you feel just because it's a mixed area, it's not safe.
I saw statistics on the police website, police, and so I saw statistics of criminals instead of it. And also I read in the internet in English when I began that this is the area from terrorism.
Oksana has now...
This is an area of terrorism, so meaning there are Muslims there. So yeah, the word racism is never mentioned in that report, but we constantly heard, including from Channel 4, that there are no ultra-nationalist elements in Ukraine. Azov and the Social National Party are not popular, but you can see why those kind of politics have festered in Ukraine, and now they're coming to the UK and coming to Western Europe. And this woman actually voluntarily left her home and left the community that was there to support her in solidarity because there were too many Blacks and Muslims there.
And going back quickly to what AOC said and justifying her vote for funding the proxy war and saying that, well, she supports the money for refugees. Well, if you want to support refugees, another option is to not support policies that create refugees. And instead of funding a proxy war that will guarantee more refugees, you could call for diplomacy with Russia immediately on all the issues that need to be addressed. The expansion of NATO, the placement of US weapons surrounding Russia, the Minsk peace process, which has been sabotaged inside Ukraine, which is supposed to end the civil war that began after the 2014 coup. And recently we've had NATO leaders like Angela Merkel admit that Minsk was not meant to make peace in Ukraine. It was meant to buy time for Ukraine to fight Russia. So rather than going along with that, you can actually say, let's have serious diplomacy instead of funding all these proxy war bills that give a token amount of money to refugees. And remember what happened when progressives tried to do that for 24 hours. They put out a letter calling for diplomacy with Russia, and that got retracted under pressure from the usual devoted proxy warriors in Congress and the media. 24 hours, and that was it. So that's an alternative option if you want to support refugees, is to stop supporting policies that create them.
Well, the whole point of that refugee money that AOC was voting for, aside from refugee washing her vote, is to provide a ventilation mechanism for the war machine, for the war state, because they know they're going to create refugees when they come in and start escalating, bringing in the HIMARS, bringing in the tanks, extending the conflict, avoiding negotiation. And so that's the role of the progressive squad, is to actually create a ventilation mechanism so that the war can go on. And of course, they put it all on the lap of Western Europeans. The US isn't going to accept many Ukrainian refugees. And in new polls, Democrats are showing that they are not as supportive as they were 6 months ago of taking in large numbers of Ukrainian refugees, 10% less than the last poll. So deeply depressing. And I think we'll see more and more of this going into 2023, because as someone, we just had a question from a commenter about whether we see negotiations on the horizon. No, I don't. I think that the State Department wrote up a phony peace proposal for Zelensky to put forward so they can continue making war, because the proposal is something that would never be acceptable to the other side.